Hi everyone, it's Laura here for Studio Katia, and in today's video I'm going to share with you how to create a floral card using colored pencils and the Japanese Peony stamp set. As a first step, I stamped the image in the Japanese Peony stamp set by Studio Katia on some drawing paper by Winsor & Newton. This is the Cotman series. And the reason why I chose this paper is that today I will be doing some coloring with my ColourBlend pencils by Spectrum Noir. I'm stamping my image with Spectrum Noir ink. This is the alcohol-proof version, but actually any ink will work because we are using colored pencils. And before starting to color, I actually went ahead and sharpened all my pencils using this pencil sharpener by Faber-Castell. This has a nice little container that will keep your desk mess-free, and it's very important when coloring with colored pencils to have them really nice and sharp. This will allow you to get in the tooth of the paper, which basically means in the texture of the paper itself. So when you feel like they're getting dull, don't be afraid to sharpen them again. You will notice the difference. To color in the flower, I decided to use shades of blue. My darkest color is Twilight Blue. The next darker color is called Petrol Blue. And then I'm going to use Royal Blue for the midtones and Denim Blue for the highlights. I started by laying down my darker color in the areas where I thought the shadows would fall. And then I went in with progressively lighter pencils, filling in the petal and leaving a space for my highlights that, as I said, I filled in with my Denim Blue pencil. I'm using more or less circular motions with the pencils for this first layer, and then I'm going to go in with a second layer to intensify the color, increase the contrast, and also create some texture. At this stage, in fact, I'm using some flicking motions and I'm extending those strokes a little bit further, and this will add more interest and a feeling of texture and dimension to the petals rather than having them colored flat, which will make them look more smooth. The areas that will be darker are the ones at the base of the petal, where the petal curves on the tip that I'm coloring now, and then the tip of the petal will cast a shadow on the petal itself, so there will be a shadow there too. I think it's pretty self-explanatory when you see it in action in the video, so I hope this is clear, but if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I'll be more than happy to answer. I felt that my highlights were not quite light enough, so I went in with a white pencil and tried to lighten them up a little bit, and that worked. So this white pencil will be now part of the color palette for the petals. And I just took my time and went ahead and kept coloring the flower with some music in the background. This is something that does take some time, but personally I find it really relaxing, and the results that you get with colored pencils are really beautiful. I also realized as I was editing the video that this is the second time in a row that I color florals with a blue palette. I usually tend to gravitate towards the more pink and orange type of colors, but I felt like doing something different, and apparently this means for me having blue in my color palette for my flowers. You will see later that I will use a little bit of color theory to create some contrast with my background and make this flower really pop. So I think that is something that is nice to do when you have one focal image and you want it to really stand out. Also, as you can probably tell, the video is sped up quite a bit because, as I said, this took a little bit of time to color in. But if you want to watch any part of the coloring process in a little bit more detail, you can slow down the video with the tools on YouTube. So you will find a little button on the bottom right portion of your video frame, and there you can modify the speed of the playback. I will now leave you with some music to enjoy the rest of the coloring process. Hopefully these kind of speed coloring videos are something you like. I personally do, and I like them quite a lot. I just wanted to mention that there are some petals in this flower which do not curl on themselves, and for those I just added some shading at the base of the petals and then blended that out towards the tip of the petals. That will be the lightest part. So with that, I think I have said all I wanted to say about the coloring today, so I will catch you guys very soon. For the leaves, I used holly, sage and pear green. And again, I used those same flicking motions to add some texture as I was blending my pencils with each other. These colors are not very saturated because I wanted the flower to be the real star of the show. And also I chose greens that have a little bit of yellow in them because I thought that they would match nicely with the color palette that I had in mind for my background. I finished coloring the leaves and then I also realized that I had missed one petal. And then for the center of the flower, I used some yellows, and this would be daffodil, canary and a little bit of pumpkin. Once the coloring was done, I die cut the image with the coordinating dies to the Japanese Peonie stamp set, and then I moved on and started working on the background. I'm using the Underwater Sun Rays stencil by Studio Katia to blend my distressings on some Bristol Smooth cardstock. The colors I used are squeezed lemonade, mustard seed and carved pumpkin. So I am trying to create a background that is on the yellow and orange tone. And this is because blue and orange are complementary colors, so creating this contrast will make the image really stand out. And also these rays create naturally a focal point that will draw even more attention to our main image. I wanted to fill in those corners of my card base, so I used some masking paper and I blended some more distressings on both sides. I did this very quickly and it wasn't super precise, but I don't think you could even tell if I hadn't told you. And that is true also because I decided to die cut this panel to a size that's a little bit smaller than A2, using the Dotted Patterns Set 3 dies by Studio Katia. And what I was doing there is I was removing some pencil residue that I guess was in my cutting plates using a kneaded eraser. At this point, I could go ahead and start assembling everything. I am adhering my background to an A2 base that I die cut out of some black cardstock using the Darling ribbon and dotted frames. And then I'm going to adhere the flower slightly shifted towards the left side of the panel with some Studio Katia glue. This love sentiment was die cut using the coordinating dies to the Spring Bouquet stamp set, and then I completed the sentiment with the word sending from the Japanese Peony stamp set. I stamped it with the same black ink by Spectrum Noir that I used to stamp my image, and then I could adhere my card front to a top folding A2 card base that is cut at 5.5 by 8.5 inches and scored at 4.25 inches. And then as a finishing touch, I added a few sequins from the Majestic Fusion mix, just to add a little bit of shine to that card front. And here is the final result. I have to say that I really like the way this card turned out, especially because that blue flower really pops against our warm yellow background. And that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed this video and I hope I inspired you to create with the Studio Katia Japanese Peony stamp set. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiration. Thank you all so much for stopping by and have a great day.